Welcome to Parents, the Anti-Drug. I'm Lee Trotter-Carew. Parents really do matter. Whoops. It won't advance. Are you there? Okay, Caitlin, it won't advance. Why won't it advance? Caitlin. 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 For some reason the slides won't advance. There's always something, isn't there? Am I talking to myself? Let's see, what else can I try? Okay. Caitlin? There we go. Now it's advancing. Okay. So, are you there, Caitlin? I've got to start over. Welcome to the presentation to Parents, the Anti-Drug. I'm Lee Trotter-Carew. Parents really do matter. Parents are the #1 influence in their teens' lives. There's no doubt about that. Teens who learn about the risks of drugs or alcohol from their parents are 50% less likely to use drugs or alcohol than those who do not. 2/3 of teens say losing their parents' respect and pride is one of the main reasons they choose not to drink or use alcohol. Yet, only 30% of teens reporting learning about the risk factors of drugs or alcohol from their parents. Research shows that when teens are asked to rank the major influence in their lives, they list their parents as #1. But when parents are asked to give the same ranking about their teens, they incorrectly list themselves very last. As a parent, do you realize just how important your voice is? Parents can help their children remain drug-free. Research shows that children are less likely to use drugs or alcohol when their parents are involved in their lives. Parents should have daily positive communications and interactions with their children. Parents need to set clear family rules. Establish clear rules and expectation for non-use and make sure those rules are communicated consistently. We need to take time to educate ourselves about the risks associated with drug use and underage drinking and discuss these with your children. Use current events in the newspapers or on the newsstand or start a dialogue about the risks. Research shows that kids who are not regularly monitored by their parents are 4 times more likely to use drugs. As a parent, you should always know where your children are, who they are with, and what they're doing. If you are not with your children, stay in contact with them. Studies show children are more likely to drink between the hours of 3 to 6, usually when unsupervised by parents. Know your children's friends. Get to know their parents as well. Discuss your no drug and alcohol rules with your parents and enlist their support. Ensure that alcohol is not available to your child at home or from others. When your child is not under your supervision, check in with parents who are hosting a party that your child will be attending to ensure that no drugs or alcohol will be available. You know you have talked with your teen about your expectations when it comes to alcohol and drug use. You probably talked about the dangers of using, the legal aspects, the health consequences, etc. But did you know that your teen may not remember this conversation? When teens in one school were asked if their parents talked to them about using alcohol, 1/3 of them responded no, or they did not remember. So to be effective, conversations regarding drugs and alcohol must continue on a consistent basis. There are a lot of moments each day to have these discussions with your child, like after watching a TV show or a movie, while cooking or eating dinner, after school sporting event or an activity, even while reading about teen issues or current events online or in the newspaper. Or how about this one? While you're driving in the car, they're a captive audience, you might say. We all need to prepare for the talk when we talk about drugs and alcohol use with the kids. So here are some things that we should consider. So we need to set clear rules and expectations, discuss the rules and what behavior that you expect. For example, you could say something like, alcohol use can cause long-term damage to a developing brain and has several risk factors associated with it. The law says that you have to be 21 years to drink for these reasons, and our family follows the law. You could also say something like this: marijuana use is illegal and is harmful. We expect that you will make healthy decisions to protect yourself and your future, and that you do not use marijuana. That kind of lays down the law, and the expectations are there. We also need to discuss the consequences for breaking the rules and making sure to enforce them should violations occur. Remain consistent with holding your child accountable for their actions. An example of what you could say is, because you stayed at the party where there was no adult supervision and where people were drinking, you are not going anywhere. No football games, no movies, nowhere for 1 week. You are grounded. I am really upset and disappointed that you broke a family rule that we previously discussed. So that is one way to put it and make it clear of where you stand. Make sure that your child understands that the rules are to be adhered to at all times. In addition, make sure that you are setting a good example. Children notice when their parents are saying one thing and doing another. For example, if your family has a rule about drunk driving, make sure that you never get in the car when you have been drinking or with someone who has. We need to make it safe for the teens. Teens want respect just as much as you do. If you come off as judgmental or accusatory, they will back away from the conversation. Engage them in a conversation. Use facts to initiate conversations that may lead to answers that you're looking for. We need to be a good listener. Ask questions and encourage your child to express their point of view. Try paraphrasing what your child has just communicated to you so they know that you are listening and you understand them. Showing your willingness to listen will make your child feel more comfortable about opening up to you, and that's what we want. Recognize good behavior. Give your child daily positive reinforcements. Communicating respect and showing an interest in your teen's life will help him or her feel safer coming to you when problems do emerge. Parents need to know the stuff. So, alcohol use starts young and increases with age. The percentage of 8th, 10th, and 12th graders who admitted drinking alcohol in the 30-day period prior to the 2010 Monitoring the Future survey was 14%, 29%, and 41% respectively. Those who start drinking at a young age are more likely to have a problem with alcohol as adults. Youth who drink before the age of 15 are 5 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence than those who start at 21 or after. That's why it's important to start talking early and keep talking about underage drinking and any drug use. 90% of 12th graders say that it is fairly easy or very easy for them to get alcohol. In most cases, an adult is buying the alcohol for them, or they're selling it to them, or even condoning its use in some way. Your opinion about underage drinking and use of any drug matters a lot. Teens say they rely on adults more than anyone else to help them make tough decisions and to provide good advice. Remember, underage drinking kills more youth than all illegal drugs combined. Every year, about 5,000 young people under the age of 21 die from alcohol use. Underage drinking can cause changes in the structure and function of the developing brain, especially when kids drink heavily. This is a major concern because, one, the brain continues to develop into the mid-20s, about 25. Number two, so many adolescents begin to drink at a young age. And three, so many youth binge when they drink. In adolescence, brain development is characterized by dramatic changes in the brain structure. Neuron connectivity, meaning the wiring and the physiology. These changes in the brain affects everything from emerging sexuality to emotionality and even judgment. Not all parts of the adolescent brain mature at the same time, which may put the adolescent at a disadvantage in certain situations. For example, the limbic area of the brain mature earlier than the frontal lobes. The limbic area regulates emotions and are associated with adolescents' lower sensitivity to risk, meaning that they don't see the risk of trying something like drugs or driving fast. The frontal lobes are responsible for self-regulation, judgment, reasoning, problem solving, and impulse control. Differences in maturation among the parts of the brain can result in impulsive decisions or actions and a total disregard for consequences. It's no secret that society gives children mixed messages about alcohol and the use of other drugs, including tobacco. As a parent, you should know that the underage drinking can have serious consequences. The teenage brain is still developing. Did you know that alcohol can impair the parts of the brain that control motor coordination, impulse control, memory, and judgment and decision-making capacity? More than 67% of young people who start drinking before the age of 15 will try an illicit drug. Children who drink are over 7 times more likely to use any illicit drug and are over 22% more likely to use marijuana and 50 times more likely to use cocaine than children who never drink. Alcohol use by teens is a strong predictor of both sexual activity and unprotected sex. A survey of high school students found that 18% of females and 39% males say it's acceptable for a boy to force sex if the girl is high or drunk. Children who start drinking before the age of 15 are 12 times more likely to be injured while under the influence of alcohol and 10 more times to be likely to be in a fight after drinking compared to those who wait until they are 21 to drink. Student substance use precedes and is a risk factor for academic problems such as lower grades, absenteeism, and high dropout rates. Alcohol and other drugs can also interfere with a student's ability to think, make learning and concentrating more difficult, and ultimately impeding academic performance. In fact, the more a student uses alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, the lower his grade point average is likely to be and the more likely he is to be a dropout. When young people drink and get into a car, they tend to make poor decisions that impact their safety. Traffic crashes are the #1 killer of teens, and over 1/3 of all teen traffic deaths are alcohol related. Mom, dads, grandparents are the most trusted sources of information for 9 to 13-year-olds. Belief in the harm associated with alcohol use goes up between 4th and 6th grade. In the transition from 6th to 9th grade, students believe that alcohol use is less harmful, meaning that they're most likely to choose to use 6th to 9th grade. They lose that belief that use of alcohol and drugs is harmful. Parents want to guide and protect our children in many, many ways. We show them how to look both ways to cross the street. We get them helmets, knee pads, all the safety gear for skateboarding, bicycling, sports. We even go to great lengths to teach them to drive safe and not to text and drive. We try our best to keep them and teach them how to stay out of harm's way. Through our actions, they are learning as well. We think they are not listening or watching, but they are. That is why it is so important to model the behaviors that we want to see in our own children and to speak the language that supports non-use of drugs. But with everything that's going on in the teen's life, they may make the choice of to try it or to experiment with a drug, and sometimes children get so involved in drugs that they can't figure out how to stop. So it is imperative that parents know the signs of possible drug use and what to look for. Parents also need to know the contributing factors for teen drug use. Did you know the risk factors for drug use? What makes some kids more likely to use drugs or alcohol than others? Some common factors that can lead to a higher risk of teen drug use and drinking are rebelliousness, having friends who drink or use drugs, even a history of addiction in your own family. However, these are far from being the only factors that put teens at risk. Knowing the common factors that often accompany drug and alcohol use by teens can help you understand when to be more aware, when to start a conversation with your kids, or taking action to change a potentially harmful situation. As shown, risk factors fall into 5 categories: individual, peer, family, school, and community. With each section, you'll find suggestions for what you can do to help your child. Here are some factors that may contribute to drug use. If your child begins drinking or using drugs at an early age, 10 to 12 years old. Another factor that might be part of your teen's choice to drink or use drugs is they're thinking that drinking or drug use isn't that harmful. If your child has ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, and conduct disorders are also indicators that they might be at risk for doing drugs. Rebelliousness, frequent breaking of the rules, and also unable to control impulses. They're more likely to say yes to drugs. So what can parents do? If your child is on a medication for any mental health disorder, it is important that you monitor his medicine bottle to assure that he's taking the correct dosage and be sure he is routinely seen by his doctor. Through modeling, teach your child how to get along and have positive interactions with other kids and adults. We can also help develop problem-solving skill. Allow your child to figure out how to accomplish a task on her own, even if it means feeling frustrated along the way. Encourage a healthy sense of self in your teen by praising her, listening to her, guiding her, rewarding good behaviors, and recognizing her talents. Make sure your child knows that you and other adults in his life support him and care about his health and well-being and his future. Spirituality involves your teen in activities at your own place of worship. We can also remind the child that you have positive expectations of him and hope for his future. Explain to your child that you expect her to succeed and live a healthy life, and that you want her to respect her body, behave appropriately, and protect herself in potentially dangerous situations. Encourage her to be a leader and speak up for herself. Be clear and tell her, I expect you to stand up and say, I'm not getting into that car. Peers can also be contributing factors in the choice of whether to do drugs or not in teenage years. So here is a list of some of the contributing factors concerning peers. So if they have friends that are rebellious, friends who drink or use drugs, friends with favorable attitudes toward drugs and alcohol use. So if their friends do not see the harm in using drugs, then your child may not either. Friends who think drinking or drug use isn't that harmful. Friends who begin drinking or using drug at an early age, like 10 to 12 years old. And of course, gang involvement. They have a lot of influence. So what can we do about these factors? Well, there's a lot we can do. We can help your teen find peer groups and activities that promote healthy, positive behavior. Give your child opportunities to interact socially with peers in a healthy and safe environment. If you know your teen is lacking in social skills, help her develop them. For example, help her to introduce herself to others, to smile, to shake hands, as well as speaking up for herself when she feels uncomfortable. We can encourage healthy friendships and discourage unhealthy ones. If your child is drawn to friends you don't approve of, try to talk to your child to find out why he enjoys their company. Make sure that you approve of your child's friends and know their parents. Be also aware of their friends that are online. Family also can have contributing factors in the decision of teens using drugs or not. So sometimes we have a family history of addiction or current addiction in close or even extended relatives. If your child has suffered a trauma like divorce or death of a family member, child abuse or neglect, that can put them at risk. If they have little or no parental supervision, is another factor. Or little or no monitoring of the child by the parent, or lack of expectations of the child. Inconsistent or severe punishment can also put them at risk. Daily family conflict, like ongoing arguments, hostility, physical abuse, and just not the normal family fighting that we usually have. If parents have lack of concern about their child's drug use, if it is not stated in your family what is expected about drug use, that might be a contributing factor. Parents that aren't clear about their feelings about their teens' use of drugs or alcohol is another factor. Parents who are suffering from depression or mental illness could possibly be another factor in the decisions of the teens. So school also can be a contributing factor in the decision of using drugs or not using drugs. So if your child has academic difficulties beginning very early, like in elementary school, if they have a learning disability, if they are placed in a special education or remedial track in school, those are all factors. Slipping grades, not turning in homework, skipping school, and lack of commitment to school, all of those can be contributing factors related to the school. So again, what can parents do? We can encourage a positive attitude toward school. Don't put school down, or we shouldn't tell bad stories about our experiences at school. We should make it a very positive experience. Make sure we have a positive attitude toward school and homework, and help your child think of school as rewarding. Encourage healthy study habits. Check homework regularly every single night so they'll know that you're going to be looking over their homework. Make sure that your child is in the correct supportive educational environment within the school. If they have any needs that are unmet, then contact your school and see what assistance can be arranged. If your child is struggling in school, talk to the teacher and find out ways to get help. Recommend your child to get involved at school-sponsored activities. Get involved in school-sponsored parent activities. Join a parent group, PTA. Remind your child that he is part of the school community. It's very important to develop that connection. The community can also lead to contributing factors. If alcohol and drugs and tobacco are easily available within the community and kids can access it easily, there's no barriers and children are likely to say yes to it. If there are no community laws that support the feeling that using drugs is not acceptable in the community, then there needs to be laws created to send that message. Community attitudes like all the kids are going to be drinking, it's just a rite of passage. Negative attitudes towards people who are using and thinking they are bad people is a stigma. Lack of investment within the community. There's no parent groups. There's no coalitions maybe. Lack of resources also goes into that category too. If we don't have services like treatment or programs to keep kids occupied and programs to promote good health and not to promote use of drugs. Poverty is also another contributing factor. Some of our communities have a higher poverty rate than others. There's also something else, a glamorization of drug use, such as we see in movies. We see it on TV all the time. Sometimes the use of drugs are played up and the consequences are really not shown. So again, what can parents do? We can support the presence of law enforcement. They're there to protect us and they're there to protect our youth. Reach out to your neighbors and create a community watch group. Make sure that your child is aware of the dangers in drug use. Turn portrayals of drinking and drug use in the media into teachable moments as opportunities to talk and connect with your teen. Knowing what to look for is a huge help in determining whether your child is drinking, smoking, or using other drugs. If you're familiar with the signs of drug use, that knowledge can aid you in gathering evidence and starting the conversation. Here you'll find a comprehensive list of signs and symptoms of drug and alcohol use. Keep in mind many of these signs of drug use or alcohol use and in isolation may be just normal teen behavior. Mood swings or changes in behavior are a standard part of growing up as teens, making the transition from childhood to adulthood. However, as you start to recognize more and more of these signs and symptoms in your teen, a picture of drug use may begin to become clear. So we need to clue into behavioral issues. The signs of substance abuse aren't all physical. Be aware of these behavioral indicators that may be a sign that your teen has been drinking or is using drugs, especially if you've noticed an abrupt change in any one of these behaviors. Okay? If your teen treats you or the family with blatant disrespect or has completely ditched certain friends, drugs could be to blame. Loss of inhibitions, mood changes or emotional instability, loud or obnoxious behavior, laughing at nothing, unusually clumsy, stumbling, lack of coordination, or poor balance. We all know that teens are usually clumsy and they run into walls or they stumble over things, but if they are unusually clumsy or stumbling or lack of coordination, then look into it. Sullen or withdrawn, depressed. If your teen is unusually tired or silent or uncommunicative, more so. Look out for hostility, anger. If they're very uncooperative, it might be an indicator that they might be using some drug. If they become more deceitful or more secretive, that's a red flag. If they make endless excuses of why they didn't get this done or why they didn't get their homework done or any excuse, it may be a red flag. They might also have decreased motivation to go to school, to do the things that they're expected to do. Remember, an overwhelmed teen may just drop a class or club, but a general lack of motivation for school, activities, and friends could be a sign of substance use. If they are unable to speak intelligibly or they have a slurred speech or rapid fire speech, that could be a big indicator of drug use. There's also changes in personal appearance. Most drug and alcohol use may cause some changes in physical appearance. Most of these, or a few of these, in isolation are definite proof of teenage alcohol use or drug use in some ways, but may fit into a larger pattern of symptoms or act as a way to open up a conversation with your teen. So if you notice that they have a messy, careless appearance, or suddenly or over a period of time, their hygiene is off the mark. It's not as good as it used to be. Are they wearing long sleeves in warm weather to hide marks like track marks? You know, look at what they're wearing. Are they wearing long sleeves on July 23rd when it's 105 degrees? You know, that's not normal. Track marks are a clear sign of intravenous drug use. They range from small red marks to open sores and bruising, and they will try to hide these. If they have any burns or soot on fingers or lips, that could be a red flag. Watch for red and flushed cheeks or face. That is not a normal thing. So if that could be a very big red flag. Remember that there are changes in the teen. It could be acne or cold weather or spicy food, or it could be a sign of drinking if they have red or flushed cheeks or face. But if you're suspicious, other signs of teenage alcohol intoxication include slurred speech or difficulty expressing thoughts, lack of coordination or balance, odor of alcohol and breath. Maybe they can't focus their eyes, and they might have red eyes as well. We also need to take note of what they may have in their car or in their home. So if you notice items disappearing around the house or found some unusual objects appearing, it's a good time to have a talk with your teenager about what you've noticed and to start looking for other signs of teenage alcohol abuse or drug use, such as mood swings and changes in behavior are often a normal part of teenage development. But in some cases, these may be potential indicators of teenage alcohol abuse or possible drug use. If you suspect your teen may be using alcohol or drugs, here are some telltale signs that you can watch for. Disappearance of prescription or over-the-counter pills. Missing alcohol or cigarettes. Remember, the alcohol in your refrigerator is just as close as the milk jug. Usually it's right next to the milk. Disappearance of money or valuables. Unusual smell in the car, bottles or pipes or bongs on the floor or in the glove box. Appearance of unusual containers or wrappers or seeds left on surfaces like frisbees used to clean marijuana. Appearance of unusual containers or wrappers and drug apparatus including pipes, rolling papers, small medicine bottles, eye drops, butane lighters, or makeshift smoking devices like bongs made out of toilet paper rolls and aluminum foil. They also may have hidden stashes of either alcohol or other drugs. We also as parents, need to keep an eye out for health issues. So drug and alcohol use can cause a number of effects on health, minor to major. Look for these symptoms in your teenager. If you spot some, don't be afraid to suggest a visit to your teen's doctor. Often a doctor can offer a medical perspective or an outside viewpoint on what's happening to your teen. So some of the things to watch out for is frequent nosebleeds. Excessive nosebleeds could be a sign of snorting drugs such as cocaine or meth. Runny nose, not caused by allergies or a cold. Frequent illnesses. They also might have sores or spots around their mouth. They also may complain of being queasy or they might be nauseated. They also may experience seizures. If your child has seizures but does not have epilepsy, you should be aware that it could be caused by huffing inhalants. They may have vomiting. They also may be wetting their lips or excessive thirst, known as cotton mouth. Discounting average thirst, dry mouth, and excessive thirst are signs that a person is smoking marijuana or taking ecstasy. Many kids suffer from recurring cold sores which stem from herpes simplex virus. Although cold sores are very common, spots around your child's mouth could also indicate that she's been smoking marijuana. And if your child has open sores not only around his mouth but on his face or body, there is a chance that he or she may be abusing meth and picking at his skin or her skin. This is a behavioral side effect of using meth. If spots around the mouth are accompanied by a chemical odor, paint stains on your child's body or clothing, or runny nose, your teen may be using inhalants. We also need to pay attention to school and work. Notice how your teenager is doing at school. Stay connected, even at a young age. Any sudden change in how he or she is doing homework or what you're hearing from teachers or school administration, you should listen. Truancy or loss of interest in schoolwork. Look for dropping grades, red flag. Loss of interest in activities, hobbies, or sports. Look for the failure to fulfill responsibility at school or if they're working in the working environment. We should also listen to complaints from teachers or co-workers. They're usually concerned and they often notice a change. If you hear a report of intoxication at work or school or work, listen to what they have to say. Don't stick your head in the sand and say, "Not my kid." As kids get older, many deem it uncool to go to class or to do their homework. A rebellious or attention-seeking child may cut class as a way to acting out. He may also start missing class or stop doing homework because he has an undiagnosed learning disability such as dyslexia or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, which makes him feel frustrated or even dumb. But a child who is missing class frequently could be doing so in order to drink or to do drugs during that time instead. A loss of interest in school may be attributed to the lack of motivation that comes along with drug addiction. If you suspect your child is using, don't panic. If you've just discovered that your child is drinking or doing drugs, the first thing you need to do is sit down, relax, and take time to breathe. It's a scary time, we know. But what we do in the next few days determines how much help the child will receive. Parents need to know how to gather information, have productive conversations, maybe set tighter limits, and also bring in outside help. You are not alone in this. You do not have to do this on your own. So take a deep breath, relax, and you don't have to do this alone. Wonder if you say, "I'm too embarrassed to tell others about my child's drug use because of the stigma." It's unfortunate and understandable that you may feel a little embarrassed by telling others of your child's drug use, but the reality is that you must put your child's health first. Substance use and abuse does not have to have the same negative stigma it once did. If you treat your child's drug or alcohol problem like a health issue and not a behavioral one, most others will follow suit. There will always be people who believe drug users are bad people, but it's not up to you to worry about their views. It is up to you to keep your child healthy and out of harm's way. Remember, as a parent, you are your child's biggest advocate. If you are too embarrassed to talk about his drug problem and to get him help, no one else is going to do it. You are the person who can make the world a difference in this situation. Know for sure. Whether your child is addicted to drugs, use them infrequently, or was just experimenting one time with friends, a problem exists. It is far more dangerous for an adolescent to use drugs or alcohol than an adult, because an adolescent's brain and body are still growing. Drinking or using drugs can take a permanent, irreversible toll on a kid. And because their brains are not fully developed, teens do not always make the best decisions. When you add alcohol or drugs to the mix, the consequences can be deadly. That's why you need to step in now and make sure that your child speaks and listens to all the various people who can help him quit using. Kids, especially teens, often think of their parents as overbearing or nagging. If your child hears the same information you're trying to give him from somebody else, someone of authority, he may be more inclined to listen. So, if you want to know for sure, you can take some steps. You can have the child have an assessment, a drug and alcohol assessment, and this is sometimes a phone interview or a face-to-face meeting between the user, your child, and a doctor or a counselor. It is usually conducted at or a treatment facility, but it can be just in your doctor's office. There's an evaluation or screening process, and this is an extensive assessment in which a user stays at a treatment center for a few days to be observed by experts. He or she may also take part in a series of tests during this time. There's also drug tests, home drug tests, that can be reliable and sometimes unreliable. But even when you have a doctor perform a drug test, that can be helpful, but we need to be aware that some of those are inaccurate as well. So, like in the movie Ghostbusters, who are you going to call? There's a lot of people out in the community that can help you through this if you think your child is using. So turn to one of these people out into the community to help you. So many kids who use drugs have other problems in their lives. Some are stressed about schools, some feel very alone or have been deeply affected by family issues such as divorce. And more than half of adolescent drug users also suffer from, and usually undiagnosed, physiological disorder like depression or bipolar disorder. A school counselor or a drug counselor or a therapist can help your child pinpoint and discuss the underlying issues behind his or her drug use or alcohol use. Your kid's coach is much more than just someone who runs practice and calls plays. He or she is the person who will be the first to notice changes in your child's athletic abilities, appearance, motivation, and behavior if your child continues using drugs. You can enlist a child's coach's help in monitoring your child, or you can ask the coach to speak to your child about how his drug use negatively affects his body, his performance, and his team as a whole. Because many drug users rely on the clergy for assistance during recovery, many clergy members are now being professionally trained to help those battling addiction. If your family has been at the same place of worship for a long time, your child may feel comfortable opening up about his problems to someone who knows him very well and who he is sure won't judge him. Many adolescent substance abusers say they drink or use drugs during hard times because they have no one else to go to. Their child may be in serious need of someone to talk to in order to alleviate her stress in a healthier way. A teacher, family friend, aunt or uncle, or other adult that your teen trusts may be able to lend the listening ear and shoulder to cry on that your child is seeking. As your child's doctor, ask your child's doctor to give him a talk about alcohol and drugs and their lasting effects on the body. Be sure to mention this when your scheduled appointment to your doctor is prepared. Remember, for confidentiality reasons, a doctor can't tell you what your child disclosed, but he or she can persuade your child to quit using casually or to get the help if the problem is more serious. If your child's alcohol or drug use has started causing serious and recurring problems, it's time to start looking into intensive treatment programs. Both in and outpatient programs provide the stability, the education, the discipline, and counseling adolescents need to get better. In order to help your child tackle his or her drug problem, you and your partner must be healthy and in a clear state of mind. However, many parents lose the ability to think and act rationally when they have a child in danger. Many parents become so obsessed with their child and her problem that they neglect the other important aspects of their own lives, their jobs, their physical health, and their other children in their household. It is therefore as vital that you seek help for your own emotional well-being as it is for your drug-using child. So look for support groups for yourself. Engage a therapist. And drug addiction affects more people than just the addict. Even if your non-drug using children seem okay, chances are they're harboring some resentment toward their sibling and you for their destructive behavior and all the attention that he or she may be receiving. Or they may live in fear of the drug user's unknown future. These negative feelings are detrimental to both the user and the family members. By getting help to make sure that other children are emotionally stable and fully comprehend their brother's or sister's situation, you're aiding in everyone's recovery and healing process. It also helps the non-using sibling to have feelings or resentment or anger validated. They have a right to be angry, frustrated, and hurt in the situation. So, in a nutshell, just one moment, technical difficulties. There it is, in a nutshell. Know that you, the parents, are the first line of defense for preventing your child from using drugs. Remember, children do listen to us, and they are watching us. Parents need to set the rules and the consequences and follow through. As a parent, they have the right and the obligation to inspect your child's room, car, backpack, phone, computer, any place they deem that they need to look for signs of contemplation of using or actual indicators that the child is using. We need to be a listener, not a yeller. We need to open up communication lines. We need to be aware of what our children are going through. How is school going? What are some of the stressors that they're having in their life? We think we have a lot of stressors. Children also have a lot of stressors. Here are some resources that you can look up on the websites. The Partnership for a Drug-Free America is a very good resource. Above the Influence, NIDA is great, and they have a lot of things for kids to learn at their level. There is also a parent hotline where you can get a lot of information. I think they also have a listing of like 34 indicators of drug use that you can look up. SAMHSA is another website that is for everyone. It's for parents and for children as well to get on. There's games to learn about drugs. So sometimes these are learning tools for both you and your child, and it can open up the line of communication. So I thank you very much for joining us, and for any information or to schedule an appointment if you're worried about something, please call 1-800-288-59112. If you have any questions about today's webinar, there's our email address. Or if you want to know about any other webinars that are available, please contact Health Directions. Thank you very much.